you don't have to wear anything. We're just so extra.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, you have the clipboard.
Wait, I have to aim. If I can aim up, there above me is the drum head.
Yes.
There's the original Pussycats
Ah,
drum head.
I love it.
And I don't think I can reach the gold record. It's too high. Maybe I can. I don't know if I'll
So
get it back up.
thank y'all for, I can't believe we're talking to you all. Thank you so much. We have other co-hosts that unfortunately had to miss it, but Josie and the Pussycats made such an impact on us, of course, through our childhoods, but it continues to make an impact. So first and foremost, we just want to say thank you for creating this film that has such lasting appeal. It's
Thanks for having us.
So funny. It was so cute and breaking the fourth wall, and it was just very campy and in a great way. It was very enjoyable to watch. I was giggling because it was so silly.
I know we're not supposed to ask this, apparently. I've talked to my friends who work in offices now, and you're not allowed to ask anyone anything. But how old were you guys when this came out? Because you
I
all
was
seem
11.
Okay. Children.
Same with me. I was either 10 or 11, depending on what month it was, but yeah, like 11 years old. Um, I was watching it and I'm like, this was released in 2001. And I'm like, oh, there's a plane crash scene. What else happened in 2001 that had to do with plane crashes? Oh no. And then I was like, this probably came out before that.
Few months before. But we did talk about what's so weird is I was 11 when this movie came out too.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
we did talk about because the movie was released in April, then obviously September happened, and I think the DVD release was after. There was a much longer window back then, and I feel
Yeah.
like there was maybe some conversation like, do we have to take that out for the DVD? I don't know. I might be totally wrong. It might have been just
Yeah.
something we thought about afterwards, but it's like, it's in the
Yeah.
movie. But I
I
don't.
mean, it
Didn't they have to
wasn't a
change
fatal
stuff
plane
in?
crash.
Well, right.
It
Everybody's
wasn't like a fatal plane crash. Everybody lived. It was like very comedic. And I was like, oh no, it was the same year. Oh no. And then I was like, well, they didn't think of that. That was had to have come out before then. But still, I watched it. I rewatched it for the first time. Pretty much since it was on cable TV back in the day. I'm not certain when exactly after the fact, that I saw it, but I do remember it shaping a lot of like some of my thoughts about subliminal messaging and like, all of that stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah. I looked at advertisements a whole different way. And as an 11-year-old, that's kind of big, you know. So, like in my opinion.
I'm impressed. I mean, I think our feeling was probably the message missed most of the audience who went to see the movie because they
Hmm.
marketed it very, very, very young. You know,
Hmm.
I don't think we thought it was going to be that. Although, we said the minute we walked in and we saw all the marketing materials, we were like, oh, okay, this is what they're doing.
Hmm.
Everything was pink and purple and, plastic, and it was the
Yep.
complete opposite of our attention. But I'm glad that you got it.
Well, when
I
we were
love that
young,
subplot so much. Yeah. It was my
I remember
favorite
it was
subplot.
a big deal. It was a big deal in middle school when this movie came out. And all around the table,
Hmm.
we were talking about Josie and the Pussycats, Josie and the Pussycats. And so, and though
The cat
there's so many
ears.
subliminal messages, but the audience that it was targeted to by the studios were sort of the target audience that were sort of played upon in the film. I mean, this was the
Mhm.
generation of Britney, and this was the generation of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Christina. I mean, that was in Disney Channel. So the rise of Lizzie McGuire. And so this was huge for us because so Josie and the Pussycats, I think it was a genius idea to set a well-known property, Archie property, in
Mhm.
2001 with the rise of the Britney movement and the pop and the manufactured pop. And so, even though the message may have been lost upon first release, I've read for the last few years how critically lauded it is and how it's
Mhm.
reevaluated as really calling into question American consumerism and American culture. So, I think it's you both deserve just dues for taking a well-known property because I grew up with the Archie comics and I grew up with the Archie cartoon, Archie's Weird Mysteries. And for every so often, every few years, they tried to reintroduce Archie characters to different generations. So I think it was genius for you all to take Josie and the Pussycats and instead of just doing a run of the mill sort of A Star Is Born plot. You had the whole American consumerism aspect and also the subliminal messaging, and I think it was great. And I've always wanted to ask you all, if I ever got an opportunity, what made you all take Josie firsthand and put her in the world of subliminal messaging and consumerism?
I mean, I think it came from us, because we turned it down a couple of times. We were approached by the studio, and then I think an agent who said, because they were very interested in hearing what our take would be after we did Can't Hardly Wait. And we thought it was a terrible idea. It's not where we were at. But then the thing that actually sparked our interest was realizing this is a movie about a band, which means there will be songs, which means we could make a musical. Like, nobody was making musicals, especially at the studio level. We were like, oh my God, they might let us make a big studio musical. And that's what made us lean in. And then once we started thinking, like, okay, if we're going to make a musical, why make a musical now? In like, the early 2000s. And we looked around at what was happening with music, and it was like, geez, because we came of age and with rock and grunge and everything was authentic. We're just so Gen X. And all of a sudden, there was all of this manufactured, seemingly saccharine, look, some of it's great, but some of it all felt very homogenized, very safe. And we kind of looked around saying, what happened? What happened to music? And then our answer was like, well, clearly they're brainwashing people to like it. And that was where the idea came from. It's like, if we're going to make a musical, what is happening to music right now? And let's tell that story. And it kind of grew from there.
Deb?
I mean, that was so well articulated. We speak for each other. There's rarely like a different story. Also, I'm a woman of a certain age with 2 children, so my memory at best is like little. I just get little fragments. I'll remember strange details, but yeah, what he said.
And it was amazing that, because you hit on something really important, because our niche is musicals. And there was like a time period in the States where it was unpopular and uncool to make musical movies. Like the 2000s was almost dead for musical movies. It was until, of course, the rise of Chicago a few years later. But the fact that you all took, of course, if you're doing any sort of Josie and the Pussycats property, you're going to have music. But to make it a full-fledged musical in a time where musicals weren't cool is also pretty commendable and kick-ass as well. And so were you all inspired by musicals in your life?
We're just big fans from when we were children. Growing up in the 70s, there were so many amazing musicals and so many films too, like movies from the 60s and 70s. I wasn't so much raised on like your Bye Bye Birdies or, but like we all saw West Side Story. Like I love all that jazz. I like all those movies that were like in our formative years of like our filmic education were some of the greatest films ever, regardless of whether or not they had music in them. I think at first we were like, do we do like because we talked about the Pussycats in outer space and we're like, do we do like a space opera, like a rock, like, but this felt like a really more accessible way in for an audience, Harry kind of, I guess, knew we were making a cult musical. But this definitely seemed like a more commercial idea, I think, than the space opera.
No, I panicked after the couple of days into shooting. I literally panicked because it was after the very first scenes we shot were the ones of Parker in the big command center where she's going through talking about how they brainwashed the youth of America. And I was like, oh my God, we're making a cult film. Like we thought we were making some big, huge comedy. Then I was like, and I just suddenly saw it. I was like, oh shit. But I was like, no, that's not going to happen. It's going to be a big hit. Everybody's going to go see it. And now here we are talking about cult films.
Well, the thing about it make it so cult is that it's so self-aware, which I love about Josie and the Pussycats. And when you read the articles that are in praise of Josie and the Pussycats, it's so self-aware, which is something that you all have done in your work. I mean, a Very Brady sequel is super self-aware. Even like the Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas is super self-aware. It's like everybody, I love that movie. There's like characters within the films, all of your films. I don't know if this is a trend that you all have, but there are characters within your films that are unaware of what's going on, but the audience and certain characters like Alan Cumming's character and other characters, and like for instance, a Very Brady sequel, everybody else is aware of what's happening except the Bradys. And in this film, except the Josie and the Pussycats. And I love that because it breaks the fourth wall and it lets the audience know that they're not tripping, that there really is something going on.
It's so funny you mention that because not a lot of people bring that up in terms of the awareness of the characters, and it's something we talked about in the writing of it, and it is still something that I wonder if the reveal of the plot comes too soon. Because just as an audience member, I don't like being too far ahead of my main characters. Like I like experiencing the story with them. And we've so early on, we're like, oh, they are just pawns in this big scheme. And they have no idea until way, way later. It still is, yeah, if there's one thing I wonder about.
I think in comedy, it is okay to be ahead. I think if it were a thriller or a drama, like, yes, I agree with you. I don't want to know what's going on and like watch these people flounder around in the dark. But there's something so much more comedic to me about these young women, really earnestly believing that like they were going out there and doing something important and not realizing they were being taken advantage of. Because I felt like that actually spoke also to, we're Gen X, so we're very cynical. We're very like self-aware as a generation. And it felt like looking at the just one slightly younger, that they didn't quite get what was going on and what was being fed to them.
Yeah, we definitely there was a real resistance to anything too genuine or too sincere, which I think is, it runs throughout the movie in places. And then we do kind of lean into their friendship. But I mean, look, if we had done it too early, if we had done it later, you lose the bit where they all get brainwashed briefly by the mega sound before they record their single, which is too fun. So maybe it's better this way.
I mean, it makes you empathize with the characters because you want them to beat the system. And the thing is your wonderful Josie and the Pussycats really falls in line. I don't know if it's a conscious thing or a subconscious thing. It falls in line with the other tropes of cult musicals like the Rocky Horror Picture Show and Shock Treatment and Phantom of the Paradise, where all these good people, good characters are being taken advantage of by these maniacal characters. And you see these maniacal characters break the fourth wall. And Josie fits perfectly within that. The evils of the record industry. Josie falls in line with a trope that's really important to the cult musical genre, which we'll get into. But Josie is original in that it takes place in the 2000s, but it's wonderfully unoriginal that it takes place in a world that has been explored before. And I always say that cult musicals, they're funny and they're entertaining, but there's still some sense of urgency in them that they're trying to warn us about real life, which is, I think that's great. I mean, you have to laugh about real life, but not to get too heavy so soon. But I do love that some of the characters are unaware of what's happening and some characters are aware. And that was what makes it hilarious, but it also makes it quite profound and deep is when some of the characters in the film are unaware of what's happening and that they're being used. And it makes them more human, but it makes the audience feel like they're connected with the characters and they're actually part of the story, which is what happens in a lot of you all's films that you have done. The audience is let in on the joke before the characters are, if they ever are. So I think that's brilliant. Hades and Mary, what do you all think about the whole breaking of the fourth wall and the sort of characters?
That was one of my favorite parts. I love that. When they, I forget what he actually said. I think it was Alan Cummings. And then, he said something and just looks at the camera like, ha, I love that. Like, fantastic. But yeah, like these poor kids, they don't know what they're getting into, but you kind of get a hint of it because they're like, hey, I'm going to sign you, but I've never heard you. It's like, that is a scam. But you know what? It's showbiz. So you say, yes, sir. And you hope for the best because that's showbiz and it's kind of fun.
That's showbiz. Yeah.
Hey.
I thought it was very tastefully done because sometimes, how breaking the fourth wall, it takes like a really good I don't know, knack to know when and how to break the fourth wall sometimes. And I feel it was very tastefully done in like a very campy way. And I love that so much. One of my favorite like breaking the fourth wall moments was oh goodness, I can't remember the character's name. And then they're like in the airplane, well, why are you here? I was in the comics. Huh? Nothing. I love that. That was so funny. Um like I liked how the fourth wall was broken in this one because it was very, very well done in a campy and like still tastefully done way. So it wasn't like we're breaking the fourth wall, boom, it's Deadpool, yeah. Didn't have that. Like it was wonderful.
Uh, did you want to say something, Harry and Deb, about that? Any of their points?
I mean, it was, I think like I don't know if we toyed with not using that Alex and Alexandra line. I can't recall again. I should be testifying
Right.
before Congress. Um, but I was here because I was in the comic book. It was on, we didn't really have a place for them in the film. They didn't make a lot of sense in the plot. And it was just like, all right, fuck it. Like, let's just be honest about why they're here.
Yeah, that was
I
really
just
it.
love that so
Because
much.
we asked ourselves that. We're like, do we need them in the movie? It's like we kind of do because they're in the comic. Like, why are they there? So we just added that line to explain it, and it just went with it. Um, yeah, and then Alan has his looks to camera. I think we do it twice. He has his
Hmm.
looks to camera, and that just felt fun. It was also a little.
Hmm.
Some of this was, you know, we didn't, you don't know how many chances you're going to get to make a movie. So we were like, well, you know what? We've always wanted to do bloopers. Let's do bloopers on this one. We didn't really have quite enough bloopers to fill out the blooper reel, but we were like, let's just do it. It's just too much fun. Let's just try that. Let's do some breaking of the fourth wall. It's just kind of, we threw everything in.
When you all were approached to do Josie and the Pussycats, we were like, right, do I need to go back to the 60s or 70s cartoon? Do I need to go back to the Archie comics? Did you immerse yourself in the world, or did you just say, I don't want to have any preconceived ideas? I want to make my own idea of Josie and the Pussycats?
You know, I had a pretty large Archie comic book collection myself. So, and then Saturday mornings when we were young, the Pussycats in Outer Space would be on, which was like I don't even I don't know what the plot of that. I know I watched it. I just don't remember the why of it. They were in outer space. Uh, so I personally didn't feel a need to go back because I felt really steeped in that already. I don't know about you,
Yeah,
Harry.
I didn't remember it. I mean, I didn't have Archie comics, and I just remembered the Saturday morning cartoon, and all I remembered was they were like, a band that dressed like cats and they solved mysteries. Like that was kind of it felt like kind of a Scooby-Doo ripoff with this band. And then yes, and they went to outer space, which was probably more interesting to me as a little kid. It's like, ooh, they go to outer space, and there was like the little space monster. Um, so we felt like, what do we want to do, even beyond the characters? It was like, what do we want to do with this title, with this concept? And then obviously when we started writing, we looked at who the characters were, and it's like, oh right, Melody's the blonde, and and Val's a little more, she was a little more sporty, whatever it was. We kind of just came up with the ways to make them specific, and obviously Josie was the lead singer, but that's when I think we started looking at it. What are the archetypes for these characters? That's a better way of saying it.
And the most important question for us, I mean, the reason that it has lasted so long, not just because it's an amazing film written amazingly, but the music is what resounds with people so much, even to this day. And where were you in terms of having a hand in what music was selected? And where were you when you first heard the songs that were presented for the film? Did you work hands in hand with the musicians who wrote the songs for the film, the composers?
So actually, we wrote quite a few of the songs for the film. We've always been really very, Can't Hardly Wait. We were very involved with scoring that movie with songs, and the opportunity to write our own music was like, you never really get that opportunity, especially at that age. Our second film, like we were like, all right, let's do it, and we pretty early on, Mark Platt, I guess, and the studio got us hooked up with Kenny Edmonds. which seemed like a weird pairing. I mean, look, there was nobody bigger in music than Kenny Edmonds. He had just, gone like, I don't even know, Beyond Diamond on the Bodyguard soundtrack, and I just responsible for so many hits. It felt like a really interesting pairing. And also he was interested because he didn't really have the opportunity ever to write rock music, pop music like that. He was mostly in R&B, that sort of pop music. And then we enlisted a number of friends of ours. It was, everything was very small back then. It was weirdly, because now it feels like people are more accessible, but like we were friendly with all these people in these bands that were around at the time, and they were friendly with other people, so we brought in Dave Gibbs, who was in the Gigolo Ants, and then we were friendly with Adam Duritz, and then Dave brought in Jane Weedland because he had worked with her, and Dave is part of the reason too why Kate Hanley wound up involved. But what we wound up doing was we had some lyrics that we were working on a little bit, but we got this group of musicians together at Kenny's studio and basically did like a songwriting camp. How long did that go, Harry?
It felt like it was a while because it was one of the most fun things I've ever done. Because it really was like we had a dream team of songwriters, but we also could say, hey, what if it went like this? Or what about this lyric? And it was such a thrill to be and Kenny was so enthusiastic about it because again, like he hadn't really written this kind of music before. So he was as somebody who could have said, no, look, this is how it's supposed to go. This is how you do it. He was so deferential and kind of curious to learn from the other musicians in that process. But at the same time, we were working in like his amazing studio. It wasn't like we were at somebody's house. It was like this incredible music studio. We'd have an idea. Somebody would go in the studio. They'd put it down. We'd listen to it back. It was just insane. And then we spent so much time, and there was the whole search for the search for Josie's voice. We thought maybe Rachel could do it, but she's like, I'm not a singer. And Kenny said, yeah, maybe we want to have somebody else do it. But the process went on for so long, and we spent a lot of money recording a lot of demo songs. Three Small Worms ended up being the last one, but we kind of ran out of money when it came to the du jour songs. So it was there were like two producers who were working with Kenny were going to be in charge, and they did that kind of music. They were going to be in charge of that. But Deb and I ended up writing those songs. Just like one of them we wrote in like the back of a car while we were scouting locations. Another we just kind of came in with like I like sang them a little riff like for the Backdoor Lover one, and it was just that those were just kind of instant and so much fun and just a goof.
I mean, we were literally out of time, and we were sitting in the back of a location scout car going, nobody rocks the mic like du jour. Ride on your motorbike with du jour. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but it seemed sort of on the level of those songs back then where you're like, could they have spent 10 more minutes on this? Maybe.
It's amazing. And I never thought I'd be able to speak with you all. I always wanted to say that when you compare du jour's music to Josie's music, du jour's music is manufactured. It makes no sense. It was like the songs by the boy bands at the time where you look at one song that's very, very amateur, but it has like 95 writers on it. And it all sounds the same where you can't differentiate between Backstreet Boys or O-Town or NSYNC. And then Josie was this kick-ass female punk band pre-Avril Lavigne. So I thought it was such a wonderful contrast between Josie and this her kick-ass band's music to du jour's music, which was just manufactured pop garbage. I mean, thought that was actually quite feminist and actually quite kick-ass in my brain is that you compare the two, and Josie was so ahead of the time with their band's music.
I feel like that added to the plot of it all too. Like du jour is clearly these manufactured boy band, it sounds like NSYNC, etc. Backstreet Boys, and then you have Josie and the Pussycats. But you didn't hear any of our music. Oh, it doesn't matter. And it's like, oh, okay, so you get to actually put out some real art into it all. You know what I mean? Like that it added to how good Josie was, in comparison to the predecessor. And I just want to touch on what you said about doing like the music band camp, whatever that thing was. That sounded so much fun. I love hearing stories where everybody has like the best time. like ever. I love hearing that.
I have photos. So, I mean, back when we all used physical media, like I have so many pictures. I have pictures of us, sitting around Kenny's studio with all these great musicians writing.
Hmm.
But that, it's fun. Harry, if you want to tell this story, like this is the reason Three Small Words was the last song.
Well, it was in the script. We it was scripted that the Pussycats music sounds raw and authentic, and all of the other music was
Hmm.
sounds manufactured. And we had
Yeah.
worked with a great music supervisor who was started on the movie, but he ended up not being able to finish with us. But we played him the songs that we were recorded with Kenny. Like, here are going to be the Pussycat songs, and he said to us, "Where's the original raw song? You don't have it. These all sound like really poppy and manufactured." And we were like, "Oh, geez, he's right. Like, what are we going to do?" And that's when we came up with the idea for Three Small Words. And that was just kind of Deb and Dave Gibbs and I just kind of riffing. And that's where we very quickly came up with that to give it that sound. And it was really helpful. And I'm so glad he was honest with us, because would have been a different song that opened the movie, and it would not have had that kind of real rough, edgy punk pop sound. So that was a good call. It's always good to work with people you trust, because they'll tell you the truth.
And the music means so much to people. Like, I talk to people about Josie and the Pussycats all the time in real life, truly. And we always discuss, different musicals. And a few of our co-hosts who couldn't be here today, they are obsessed with Josie because the music is so good. And it was, especially for our generation, our age group, we saw something in Josie that we weren't seeing in the people that we were conditioned to idolize. Because you talk about the subliminal messaging, we were sort of that generation and that age group that were being fed, this is the next big thing. This is the next big pop star. This is the next big TV show. So when Josie and the Pussycats came around and you had this girl band whose music was unlike any other music at the time, they were sort of rebellious, and they were fighting against what was we were being conditioned to buy and to purchase and to be obsessed with. And I think that's why it means so much to millennials, this movie.
I'm going to start a conspiracy theory right now that just occurred to me. The performance of the movie, maybe we were sabotaged by the music industry. Let's just go with that.
I mean,
I love that controversy so much.
I mean, when you brought that up, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what if?
Slay.
Let's just say,
I love it.
I mean, it has to be true on some sort of level, because I always say that cult musicals try to warn us about the same things over and over again. And so a lot of the reasons that musicals become cult musicals is because they're not really caught on to when they first come out, and they're not appreciated. So you have movies like Shock Treatment, which is the sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then you have Phantom of Paradise, and you've got Rock and Roll, and you've got Josie and the Pussycats, which always talk about that. They all talk about the dangers of the music industry and how it's nefarious, and that, I guess, it's sort of the myth of the American dream, so to speak. And so even though they're glitzy and they're glamorous and they're campy, these cult musicals really teach us a lot about life. And if you dig deep and you get past the campiness and the cheekiness, there is a lot of truth to it. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's being critically reevaluated today, is because people said, which I was going to segue into, that Josie and the Pussycats predicted the world. It predicted the future, but even more, which I think makes Josie so powerful, is that it was sort of predicting the world in which it was released in. But people didn't catch on it. And it was I've never seen a film like Josie, to where it sort of calls into question its own time period of which it's based, and people don't understand it or they don't get it, which I think I don't know if you all meant it to be that deep, or if you want it to be cheeky and campy, as well as being sort of a critique on consumerism, commercialism. But I think that's what makes Josie so deep. It's that you look back and you're like, right, we actually were sold all these things. And so when Renee, Mary, Hades, and I went back and rewatched Josie for the upteenth time, you're like, I was that 11-year-old that would be buying DeJour's albums, and I couldn't tell you why I liked them, It was just because what Disney Channel told me to buy.
I mean, I think unfortunately that's just historical pattern that repeats and repeats, Like I think the first time you contacted me, I had just been at the mall with my 13-year-old and we were in is it Bath and Body Works where they have like gazillion candles and she went around to every single candle. I was like, at a certain point, like after candle 5, they all smell the same. And there's probably 90 to 150 kinds of candles in there. And like, here we are again. Like, why does she need every Laneige lip mask that comes out? They're all the same thing. They're all the same thing. But like, you've got TikTok and you've got Instagram telling you everyone to buy the same thing. And like, here's the same thing with a different color. And I know it's exactly like this, but I need it. And I think that, you can sort of, be against this all you want, but I just don't think we're ever gonna, in the country we live in, I don't think we're ever gonna, beat consumerism. It's inevitable, unfortunately.
I mean, it's definitely something we talked about while we were writing and making the movie. We really wanted the satire to have as much teeth as it could, which is why we thought it was so much funnier to use real brands. We got dinged for it when the movie came out because people thought we were being hypocritical, promoting brands, having doing the product placement for Target. But we just thought how funny to use them. We felt like we were using them, and if they were in on the joke or not in on the joke. The other example we always talked about was like on The Simpsons, it would be Duff Beer or Laramie cigarettes, and the satire works on that show. But we thought, well, let's not make up for it. Let's see if we didn't think it was going to work, by the way. We thought we were going to have to make up all these brands because who was going to let us use their logos? But they let us do it. So we just thought it was hilarious and so much funnier. We talked a lot about The Simpsons as when we were doing it in terms of a tonal reference. But the other thing we talked about was Fight Club. Like we felt like, let's be there. We're going to be a merging of Fight Club and The Simpsons. Which is, insane. And that's the movie you get.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. I rewatched it for the first time in a billion years, like last night. And I was with two people, my spouse and a friend who they never saw it. It was off their radar, very macho. I don't need to watch Josie and the Pussycats in 2001, that sort of fella. And then now they rewatch it as adults, and now they get all of the subliminal messaging stuff, and they're like, "What is with all these brands?" And I'm like, "Guys, you gotta wait. You gotta wait. You're gonna love this." Same same thing with Renee. I messaged her. I'm like, "Yo, you gotta watch this. It talks about like subliminal messaging and stuff. You have to watch Josie and the Pussycats." Yeah. I don't know if you saw it back in the day, Renee, or if it was like a memory, unearthed from the deep, because that's what it was for me. As I'm like, oh, that's right. This completely shaped my childhood and teenage years. Probably why I was a goth. So
Then you
It
would
was
have
like,
been thrown in the back of the van in the was it Tower Records?
yes,
I
exactly.
That on capitalism is a movie for me.
And the thing about Josie is that it was the way it's probably marketed. You always can tell us about marketing. It's probably marketed as a girls' musical, but even a few years before, if a lot of people slept on, that's what the younger generation say, slept on the movie Spice World, but even Spice World was making fun of commercialism. And it was overlooked as being a satire, like Josie was overlooked. I mean, even Spice World they were all in on the joke, like you all on Josie and the Pussycats. So, and both of those films have been critically reevaluated. And a lot of people said it was such an important film for them because not only because the music's great and the way that you all shot it and the way that you all imagined these characters and adapted them, but just the truth of the movie. And the cast is filled with millennial superstars. I mean, Rachel. And then you have all these other really, really important Tara Reid, everybody, Rosario Dawson. I mean, these people were really important to us in this particular decade. And so were you ever able to meet them in terms of having a hand in making sure that they were cast in the film? or was it something that others wanted you to cast them, or is it something that you specifically saw in your mind them as these characters?
I mean, the only person who was sort of who had really been targeted by the studio was Rachel, because she was really having a moment then. Although that's not like, we did read people. People did come in and read for Josie, and they really wanted Tara because they had just done American Pie, and really, like, she did seem so perfect. We read a ton of girls for Val. People came and read for Wyatt. Do people read for Fiona Harry? That I think maybe, like, I can remember like two or three.
Who do you remember?
I feel like did Portia de Rossi come in for Fiona?
Oh, wow.
I remember
Maybe.
that.
I mean, I think that we had the idea for Parker, and it was kind of like there's nobody else, but it was going to be a challenge to see if she wanted to do it. And I don't think, because there was a weird thing where, we loved Alan, and it was once Alan signed on, maybe Parker was like, oh, because they already knew each other. They had already been working on a movie together and were friends. So I think that became like, oh, that the pairing is what made that happen. And then, yeah, but we read a lot of Wyatt's. Some crazy people came in, and the people know the stories about the people who read for Val. Beyonce came in to read for Val. Lisa Left Eye Lopez came in to read for Aaliyah. Like, it was because we thought, well, maybe we can find a musician and that will really kind of make it feel a little more legitimate. And Left Eye actually got the furthest along in that process. She read with Rachel. She came in a few times. But ultimately, when we met Rosario, it just felt, oh, here's Val. Like, this is clearly Val. She just had that thing, whatever it is, and she could balance the comedy with the everything else. So that was kind of, yeah, it made it easy for us. And we read some interesting people, because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to make Rachel's deal either. So we read a lot of interesting people came in for Josie as well. Like the first time we'd ever seen Zooey Deschanel, she like walked into the room and sang for us. And we were like, we love her, and their studio was like, we can't cast her in the movie. That's not going to happen. And it's interesting. People read for. Didn't Amy Adams come in and read for Alexandra at one point?
Maybe I have my binder somewhere. I'd have to go find it, but I saved all our casting notes. But yeah, there were some Amy and God. Oh, you would like, what made me so happy was Tim Curry came in.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just giddy. I mean, you keep talking about shock treatment. Like, I had a shock treatment t-shirt. I don't know. I wish I knew where it went. But yeah, he came in. Billy Zane came in.
Oh.
In like this Oswald Boateng suit. I just remember like being really impressed by his suit.
It's so weird that those guys have to come into audition. Like, Tim Curry's auditioning for, it was just like, you should not be auditioning for this part.
But sometimes people who mean something to you don't mean something to the powers that be who write the checks. You can go on and on about like how iconic Tim Curry is, but they didn't care.
Who was he auditioning for?
I bet it was
Josie,
Alan Cummings'.
No.
Wyatt. Yeah, Wyatt.
I'd watch that fast.
I would watch it so fast.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The thing I can't remember at all, Harry, is who read for Alan M. aside from Gabe.
That's weird, because I feel like I remember James Franco came in an audition, but did he audition for Alan M, or was he auditioning for Alexander?
I don't remember James Franco at all, so that's
I remember James Franco coming in very specific, because I was like, oh, wait, this will be fun. And I don't think, it felt like he did not want to be there. Felt like his agents were like, you should audition for this. And he was like, ugh. So he did not really fully commit.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
But you had three, and du jour, you had three 90s and early 2000s, like, icons with Brecken and Seth Meyer and Donald Faison. Like,
well, that was much easier.
They went so much to us because of Clueless and because of Austin Powers. And so these I mean, they were playing essentially, I like to feel playing themselves.
A little bit. I mean, look, they'd all been in Can't Hardly Wait, all four of them.
Love that
And
film.
at the time when we shot, if we weren't, we were close to, Breck and I were engaged at the time. So it was a very easy call to make, go like, oh, can you guys just come up to Vancouver for a day and a half and shoot this thing?
And they also loved, this was a fantasy for them, like to be in a boy band together. Like, because Brecken, who's like, the biggest grunge fan in the world, was also like a secret NSYNC fan and like, knew all the moves to the Bye 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 video. Like, we knew that about him. So for
I
them
just
to
want
like,
to, in defense of my ex-husband, it wasn't about the music, because when we met, Brecken owned one pair of jeans and 12 Pearl Jam t-shirts, and that is it. But he has that thing where like it's like an ADHD thing where you go really deep on something, like you become obsessed with like synchronized dancing, and you learn and you so I think that was really those dances, that was like something that like he just decided to go deep on that. There was also, he had a Garth Brooks phase, like where he became obsessed with Garth Brooks and then he abandons it.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. But yes, they were very excited to do this, and like we're super games. That's like, yeah, I'll wear the fuck out of that boa, and the top hat, and, the
But of course, the way
monkey.
we had to schedule it, because Parker was only available for the first 3 weeks of the shoot.
I
And
love
the
that.
guys were only available for the very end of the shoot, which meant when they're supposed to come in and like help the Pussycats save the day at the end of the movie, we didn't have, except for Alex, who was available, which is why because they're all in the body cast, because we didn't have the guys. So it was like Alex was the only one who could work that day. So we are like, well, maybe we'll try and make it funny and have they're all busted up. And that's where we came up with the Metallica line, because it was literally scheduling. Otherwise, it would have been all of them.
I think
It was so funny.
like now we would have fought to just shoot the reverse one day
Right.
and come back. But I think it was also that that was a real location. That was really the bowels of the stadium. Like it was not, that was not a bill.
No, it wasn't.
That was a bill?
No, that was the abandoned bread factory where we
Wait,
shot
what?
all the undergrounds. Yes, yes. We only had the stadium for the days we shot in the stadium floor.
Oh, you could have fooled me. It was an
Because we
abandoned
shot-
bread factory? Was I even
Yeah,
there?
we shot for like a whole weeks there, because it was where we did all of the rotating car and yeah. It was an abandoned bread factory.
Guys, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you could tell me anything. I'd be like, oh, all right, I guess that happened.
The cast in this film, though, I mean, they really had such chemistry, and that's something that you can't fake. And it's not something you can create either. And those three girls and the Josie and the Pussycats, their sisterhood and their camaraderie really shows. I would like to think it was real. It really shows in the film, and it really, as a little gay boy growing up in the end of the early 2000s, I looked at strong female singers and strong female characters, and I saw their empowerment and their sisterhood, and I just thought it was so kick-ass, because the girl bands at the time, you always heard, in the early 2000s, oh, one's gotten replaced or whatever. And these three girls, they look like they had such chemistry and camaraderie. And I always wanted to think that was real.
Very real. Very real to the point where you're like, could you have less fun because we're trying to shoot a movie? Like, you're like, guys, shh.
Yeah, they were always giggling and laughing. It was a certain point where we were like, guys, come on, you got to go to work now. Like, we love that you're having fun, but let's get this done, because they adored each other. They really didn't they buy each other some gift, or I think they gave each other like little Pussycat charms or something. I don't know. It was very sweet.
One. It was a friendship bracelet. Like it's again somewhere in the mess of everything, the archives. Yeah, that's a bracelet, and it said like they engraved it on the back. It said like from your Pussycats.
Oh, cute.
I love that.
And it was sweet to see them reunite. They hadn't seen each other in, I think, since the movie. And a few years ago, we did that album release party, and Rosaria was a surprise guest because we didn't even think she was going to be in town. And the three of them got to hang out together, which was super fun to see.
I do want to ask, when the film was released, And I guess some of the overt and also subversive sort of jokes. Did you find that did you ever go to any test screenings to see if any of the audiences got it?
There was one test screening. Did not go well. Should have seen it coming. There was one, because the test screening audiences are just people they pull up and would you want to go see Josie and the Pussycats? It was not, it wasn't, I don't know. Yes, it was the results were not terrific. But to the studio's credit, they still gave us a wide release. They still, believed in the movie, and then we went around opening weekend because we had the experience when Can't Hardly Wait came out. We went to theaters opening weekend, and it was, people were literally sitting in the aisles. I don't know that they bought tickets for another movie and then snuck in. It was a full house. People applauded at the end. It was like being at a concert. We went to opening weekend for Josie. Theaters kind of like maybe a third full.
Oh, please. You could have shot a cannon through those theaters.
Yeah, it was the opposite experience. And we kind of knew, oh, this is not going our way.
But I remember being young. I remember being 11, and this movie was all what people talked about. Because as an 11-year-old kid, it was like seeing our idols at the time on the screen. So even though it may not have made a quote unquote impact at the time, it made an impact, I think, on the demographic that sort of the film was written with those in mind, either to sort of demonize them or to sort of poke fun at them. But I think it made an impact on, I know, my age group at the time, especially and when it came to DVD.
I think that's the difference. I think DVD, sleepover parties, I think it found its life on DVD and on cable, maybe not in the theaters.
Like perhaps if there had been social media, I think maybe, if you couldn't reach other people to tell them that you liked something, you could only tell your immediate circle. And what's happening up there? There you are.
Right. I couldn't get it to
James
work.
is doing backflips.
Yeah, I think, again, everything, we were just too early on everything.
It was ahead of its time.
It was.
The
And
world was ready for its genius.
what I want to ask you all is, when you look at the legacy and the impact of the film that it has and how critically reevaluated it is, and how my generation and younger love the film and speak about it so highly, and that people finally got the joke. I mean, I was reading some articles today because and they're also positive about Josie, talking about how it's a masterpiece, how it's misunderstood, how it was ahead of its time. Does that sort of make
Don't
you
stop.
Pardon?
I said, don't stop.
Oh, don't stop. How does that make you all feel, though?
It's really lovely. Like, I mean, look, the most lovely thing is when we hear from women who said, like, I started a band after I saw your movie. I went and picked up a guitar with my friends and started a band and started, look, it would have been great to have been recognized in the moment, but also, like, it's really wonderful to be recognized at any time of the day, better than like completely screaming into a void and just never seeing it land anywhere. It just took a while for it to get there.
And we've worked on a lot of movies since, writing various movies, and none of them seem to have the life. Some of them just come and go. People like them, and then they're just kind of somewhat forgotten. Every movie has its diehard fans, but this one definitely seems to have had such a long life and seems to have grown in popularity in ways that we never, premonitions of cult movies aside, we really couldn't have predicted that this movie would take on such a life and we'd be talking about it 20 plus years later, which is nice. It's nice to know that it wasn't all for nothing.
Well, it's being rediscovered and it's being lauded, and people love this film, and it reminds people of a simpler time. But then you take sort of the nostalgia aspect, and then you take how so self-aware it was, and then people miss that sort of self-aware humor. And I think that's present in all of your work. A lot of your work is so self-aware, and I love that type of humor. And Josie means so much to so many people, and I'm so glad I'm able to say that to you all because there's so many people like who follow cult musicals on Instagram, and they just love Josie and the Pussycats, and they praise it, and they talk about their first time seeing it and what it means to them and how much they love the characters. And I'm sure you received the love online from Josie. People talk about how much they love Josie, and even critics, millennial critics, are saying how much of a masterpiece it is and how misunderstood. And I always said that Josie and the Pussycats would make an incredible kick-ass off-Broadway or Broadway musical that would retain its sort of 2000s. I wouldn't want it to take place now. I would want it to play into the 2000s sort of Y2K fashion, because that whole fashion's coming back, the whole Y2K aesthetic. So I would love it to come on Broadway. I think it would be
we would
brilliant.
love that too. They're doing right now, we're just tangentially involved. They've just been kind enough to involve us, I should say, in the Can't Hardly Wait musical that's going to be next year. So it would be great to do this one next. I have a feeling it's a trickier thing to pull off rights-wise, but you never know.
It depends on how precious whoever owns these characters are going to be about the characters. They just did Riverdale, and I think that it's a very different world we're in now with IP and these characters that people own. We were allowed to do whatever we wanted. It's a different thing now. I think they recognize the value of some of these properties in ways that they didn't really think about them before. So
And I watched Riverdale, and I saw so much of you all's Josie and the Pussycats in Riverdale. And their Josie and the Pussycats with the cat ears and sort of their badass feminist attitudes. And so you all Josies and the Pussycats, I think, reshaped the way that Josie and the Pussycats, those characters now are approached, because they're completely, the Riverdale Josie and the Pussycats definitely took inspiration from you all's ideas of who these characters would be. And I think it lives on. And I've always said, I think this would be an incredible stage musical. I think it would be so great. I think it would do so well, especially with my generation and younger, to revisit this and to have it be tongue in cheek. I think it would be incredible.
Maybe you should put it on in London. I think you can do those things like in London. Like they just, Heathers, I think, really took off there. Now Heathers is going to come here. So yeah, maybe you need to take up the cause across the pond.
Well, they just did Grease 2 on stage here.
What?
Yes, I went to go see it. It was one night only. It was called Cool Rider.
I was about to book a plane ticket.
It was called Cool Rider, and Maxwell Caulfield was in it, who played Michael Carrington, the Cool Rider in Grease 2. He played Mr. Stewart, the sex ed teacher. And it did so well, they're talking about doing it again. But the way that they approached it, which I think they could do with Josie, is that before they came out and the audience was all in on the joke, they were like, this is so much better than that movie starring Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta. And they said, for rights reasons, we can't call it what you're thinking, so we'll call it Cool Rider. So it was all tongue in cheek. And I think Josie has that same quality of breaking the fourth wall. And
did they do the songs?
Pardon?
Did they do all the songs from Grease 2?
They did all of them.
Oh my God.
So how do they have the rights to the songs to Grease 2, but they can't say Grease?
Because the songwriters of Grease 2 granted permission.
I see.
And so it was still Stephanie Zanoni and Michael. But actually, and I promise you I'll edit this out. We always go off on tangents. I'll edit this out. I'll show you the program. Hold on. It was so good. It was almost like being in mass, y'all. Everybody. So I promise you I'll edit this out. The audience was full. It was a full house at the Palladium. It was completely sold out. And the audience repeated every single line of the script. And there was callbacks via Rocky Horror. So look, Cool Rider.
Oh my God.
And then it It was so funny, and it was very tongue in cheek. There's Maxwell Caulfield.
I saw him hiking like probably 10 years ago in Runyon Canyon, and I like almost lost it. I could perform all of Grease 2 right now for you guys. I won't, but I could.
Let me send you. Can I share? And I promise you guys, I will edit this out. Let me share a picture with you all. I almost lost my shit. I was like, all right, James, you need to maintain your composure. And before the musical, I went over there. There you go. I sent it to you. Oh, it's sending now. All right. Can you see it? I sent it in the group chat if you can see it.
Yes. Amazing.
I saw that photo. You sent that to us before.
I told Maxwell, I was like, because he's always evaded Grease too, but he finally agreed to do it. And he's never like, so I said, my heart is beating, of course. And I was like, I just want to let you know, Grease 2, you know how you meet, like you two. I'm so glad I met you all. But if I met you in real person, I probably wouldn't know what to say. But I met him. I was like, what do I say to Maxwell Caulfield? And the only thing that could come in my mind was, I just want to let you know, Grease 2 means so much to so many people. And he said, that's what they tell me. And they said, I'm going to find out tonight. And he actually cried at the end, because he didn't realize how much Grease 2 meant to people. And so it was great, but it was very tongue in cheek. It sort of made fun of Grease 2, but while embracing it. So like it made fun of the whole aspect of like, when he was not the co-writer, he just took off his like goggles. And then he's like, it was a whole joke of like, how could she not know that was not Maxwell Caulfield just with a helmet on and goggles? So I think Josie has that same quality. And I would love, I don't know, was there ever any talks ever down the road about there ever being sort of a spinoff or anything involved with Josie and the Pussycats?
I mean, people have people love the idea of it as a musical. It's just, I don't know that the rights holders agree or want to take that risk. The only thing we did was we, with Seth and Brecken, and I think Donald, we're gonna do a series, probably like a limited series of like a du jour reunion. This was before Popstar. And it was obviously before Girls 5 Eva. But we thought, how funny would it be to take like a boy band they're going on tour again, a reunion tour. It's when like it was right after the Backstreet Boys did a reunion tour, and maybe it was with NSYNC. And we thought it'd be really funny, and we actually took it to Netflix, and they came very close to doing it. And then this was like early Netflix too. And then we ended up the truth is we also ended up getting busy with other things, and we kind of walked away from it. And then Popstar came out, and it's like, oh, well, this has been done. And Popstar's hilarious, so it's not like we're going to compete with that. But that was the only time we ever thought about revisiting it.
And this, like I said, this movie means so much. And so if you ever decide to do a screening, I would love to see this movie done with a shadow cast that a lot of cult musicals do, where they perform it in front of the big screen, and they have a cast in costumes perform like the Rocky Horror Picture Show does. I think
who do you want to play?
Me?
I mean, feels like you're fishing.
I chose my costume.
I'll probably be one of the Jors, honestly. Or Hades can be Alan Cumming.
Clearly.
But always before we close out, Hades and Mary, do you have any quotes from the film? And then I'll ask you, Deb and Harry, about the quotes, and then I'll tell you my favorite. Do you have any quotes or scenes from the film that are just your favorite?
Yes. And my mic working? Why am I gone? Oh no.
I don't know.
Your mic is working. There you go. There you are. You hit camera too.
When Carson Daly came just started trying to kill him.
Oh my God.
Where did that? I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah, we thought the same thing. We were shooting. We were like, what are we watching?
That got me.
Sorry.
I can tell you, that originally scripted, that scene was supposed to be, it was always Carson Daly because we had him and he was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
he was supposed to reveal they were like live tigers that were gonna maul the pussycats to death. Like literally, it was gonna be like, well, they're cats, so there was some kind of cat thing. And the reality of getting tigers on set and having that happen, where it was just impossible. And then it was like, well, now what do we do? And I think like Aries, who ended up doing that was like the 2 days before he just flew out. Like we were desperate to find what are we gonna do with this scene and how we're supposed to kill them. It was that was stressful.
Well,
Well, it paid off. It was hilarious. It's definitely one of the most memorable scenes. Is like with Carson Daly just, we're gonna kill you now. And I'm like, what is happening here? It was so funny. I love that
Yeah,
one
Carson was
too.
awesome. And by the way, Carson at the time was like the top of pop music. Like he was
Yeah.
the guy. And for him to be like, oh, I will totally make fun of all of this. You want me to play a killer? I'm in. He was so
Yeah.
game, whereas he didn't have to be. He really could have been like, I want nothing to do with this. And he was all in. And MTV also, that it was not an MTV movie. You know, it was a Universal MGM movie, but MTV was like, fine, this is great. So we did get lucky there.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And I love all the little like lines. What was the one that I said before with the oh, I was in the comic. I love just all the like little one-offs. I can't think of all of them right now, but there was a lot of them, and I'm like, and I just laugh every time. It's a very iconic movie. You can take most any quote from it and just apply it to whatever in real life. It's very memeable. It's so 2001. I loved it.
My favorite was always, oh my God, I'm a trend pimp. Like I love because it's like it's so true. It's like you're saying about your daughter. It's like a celebrity can be like use oh, my favorite candle is that so and so and tweens and teens will run out and buy it. I love that idea that
I
she
feel like
was like,
that's a goal now. That's like a life goal to be a trend pimp. You're like, I just want to be a sponsored, uh, what is it? Like a brand.
It's an
influencer,
influencer.
No, I know, but
Influencers
like
are
when
trend
people are like
pimps.
a brand ambassador.
Brand
That's
ambassadors.
ambassador.
Brand ambassadors.
yeah, that is a goal now.
Yeah, it's a career. Being a trend pimp is a career.
And I know that Josie, we're here to talk about Josie, but let me tell you something. There's a quote there's a scene that's always in my head, and it means so much to me in life. And I can't really say it over here in the UK because nobody gets it. But in America, I used to say it at work all the time, and it was, that's funny. That's funny. I've never heard of a George Glass at our school. I was like,
Christine Taylor's pronunciation of skill, is so genius. Yeah, that was amazing.
I
think that's
love
I know sure Jan is a calling out a lie, but I think that might be a better calling out a lie. That's funny.
I love it. It's true, Jan. I say that all the time, and then I get my nieces to say it. I mean, you all are just so genius with your writing, and you make fun of life, and it's endearing because we're all in on the joke. It's so a very Brady sequel and Josie and the Pussycats can't hardly wait. They just mean so much to so many people, but I couldn't let y'all get away with saying that. I mean that is the very Brady sequel is, and I'll edit this out, it means so much to me. Like I quote it every day in real life to myself because nobody would get it over here in the UK. But it's iconic, and you both are super iconic. And I hope there's more things to come for Josie. Hope there's some exciting things in the works, possibly maybe a 20th reunion special, a 25th reunion special. I hope the du jour Netflix picks up the du jour thing, or even to have like a YouTube. What's funny about that?
I think that ship has sailed, but who knows?
I would love it because I mean or at least build something within the world of Josie. I would have loved to see you all do something with Archie the same way that you did something with Josie. I think that would have been brilliant because I think Riverdale took Archie super serious, and that was sort of the critique from Archie fans, and critics were like, this is, you basically could just, you have a teen drama and you slap the name Archie on it. I would have loved to see you all do something self-aware with Archie like you did with Josie and the Pussycats. I think that would have been incredible.
Mhm.
But thank
I'd
y'all
love to do
so.
another. Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, what were you going to say, Harry?
I would love to do another. The reunion concert was so much fun, and we had talked about. There was talk at one point of trying to do one on the East Coast in New York. I don't know if it's ever going to happen again, but that would be that. That was super fun to do a concert, just to hear those songs played live and by the original musicians. That was really really fun. That was our Grease 2 one night only.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be one night only because I could see this happening. If you ever do the concert again or reunion, please spread the word on social media so people will know because it means so much to people. Or you can do a very Brady musical.
I feel like someone did that. Or is that where this came out of?
It's where it came out of.
Yeah, that's where the Brady Bunch movies came out of, is people were doing a Brady Bunch, like it was a live, that little theater down in West Hollywood.
It actually
And
started in New York. They started it in New York, Deb. It was like wherever, like whatever that theater was across from the bitter end. Was it the Village Vanguard? I don't know what it was, but there was a little theater in New York, and they called it the Real Life Brady Bunch. Andy Richter was in it,
Oh wow.
and some other. I don't know if anybody who ended up being in the movie was in it. I think you know who did it? Well, she's not Jill Soloway. I don't know what I don't know what their name is now. Who did Transparent? Um,
Oh yeah.
uh, they did they were the kind of the genius behind doing a campy. They would basically just do episodes. They would just do a full on episode of the Brady Bunch with a young cast, and it was just kind of pointing out the absurdity of it. And that became so popular that I think Paramount said, "Hey, there might be something here. What if we do a movie?" And then, of course, they didn't involve any of those people in the movie version.
Naturally. But then
Yeah.
we got the treat that is the far superior sequel, a Very Brady sequel, which is the most quotable movie of all time. But I appreciate y'all so much and thank y'all for writing such wonderful things. And we can't wait to see what you all do in terms of the future. Is there any other exciting things that you are working on that you can say before we close?
Stuff we probably, I mean, some stuff we probably shouldn't say, and other stuff isn't at the stage where it's happening yet. So just stay tuned. Is all I'll say.
And
Thank
thank
y'all
you.
so.
Thanks for being so patient. I know it took a while to get this together, but thank you for waiting.
No, thank you all for agreeing. I mean, this movie means so much to us, and a lot of your movies mean so much to us, and we appreciated that y'all take the time to talk to us three weirdos.
Thank you. And the
Pleasure.
costumes are fantastic. So thank you.
I just wore a
Thank
leopard
you.
shirt. This
Appreciate
is
the effort. I see the leopard print shirt. It
looks like
did not go
something.
unnoticed.
And there was
Looks
a
like
cat.
something.
There was a cat cameo when you play it back. I saw the cat cameo.
It looks like something Delta Burke would have worn on Designing Women.
Nothing wrong with that.
Thank y'all
All right.
so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.